I went into surgery believing the hardest part would be waking up and learning how to walk back into my life. I was wrong. The surgery ended, the anesthesia faded, and the real pain began when I discovered that the people I trusted most had made a decision about my life while I was unconscious. While I lay on an operating table, my parents sold my home. Not a small apartment, not a temporary place, but the condo I had worked years to own. Papers were signed, money exchanged, and my future was rearranged without a single word to me. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. Families don't do that to each other, I told myself. Parents protect, they don't profit. But the facts were there, cold and undeniable. The condo was gone. The place where I imagined recovery, peace, and stability had been sold as if it never belonged to me. And the most painful part wasn't the loss of property. It was the realization that while my body was being cut open to save my life, my trust was being cut even deeper. When I confronted them, they spoke calmly, almost confidently. They said it was for the best. They said I wouldn't need it anymore. They said I should be grateful they handled things while I was unavailable. In their voices, I didn't hear guilt. I heard certainty. They truly believed I was powerless, that I would accept whatever was left for me because I had no choice. They thought surgery had put me on pause, frozen in a moment where decisions could be made over my head. What they didn't know was that long before the operation, long before the hospital room and the 4 lines, I had prepared for uncertainty. I had learned not to place every piece of my life into one visible place. Quietly, without announcements or applause, I had secured another house. It wasn't about hiding wealth or playing games. It was about survival. It was about understanding that life can turn without warning, and safety sometimes has to be built in silence. So while they believed they had taken everything, I was already standing on ground they couldn't touch. I didn't rush to reveal it. I didn't argue or shout. I watched as their confidence slowly collapsed under the weight of truth. The power shifted, not because I demanded it, but because reality demanded it for me. They realized too late that control based on deception never lasts. Recovery taught me more than any success ever could. It taught me that strength doesn't always look like resistance. Sometimes it looks like patience. Sometimes it looks like letting people expose themselves while you hold on to the facts. Losing a home hurt, but gaining clarity changed my life. I learned who respected me, who underestimated me, and who believed my silence meant surrender. In the end, they sold a house, but they couldn't sell my future. They took what they thought was everything, only to discover it was never all I had. And as I walked out of the hospital, still healing but fully aware, I understood something clearly for the first time. The most dangerous move is not revenge or anger. It's quiet preparation. Betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from family, because it violates a trust that was never meant to be questioned. You grow up believing that no matter how cruel the world becomes, your parents will always be the final line of safety. Friends can disappoint you. Strangers can harm you. But family is supposed to protect. That belief becomes part of your identity, so when it breaks, it doesn't just hurt your feelings. It rewrites how you see yourself and everyone around you. When betrayal comes from the people who raised you, it feels personal, intentional, and impossible to defend against. What makes family betrayal so devastating is that it often hides behind familiarity and justification. Parents don't usually see themselves as villains. They convince themselves they are doing what's necessary, what's best, or what you would have agreed to if you were present. That self-justification makes the betrayal colder. There is no rage, no visible malice, just calm decisions made at your expense. And that calmness hurts more than anger ever could, because it tells you they felt entitled to your life, your choices, and your sacrifices. In moments like these, the pain isn't only about what was taken, it's about the realization that your vulnerability was used against you. Surgery is a moment of absolute helplessness. You are unconscious, defenseless, trusting others to protect both your body and your world while you cannot. To discover that this moment was exploited creates a deep psychological wound. It teaches you that even your weakest moments are not safe from those closest to you. That lesson lingers long after the physical scars fade. Family betrayal also brings confusion. Love and harm exist in the same people, and your mind struggles to place them in one image. You replay memories, searching for signs you missed. You wonder if the love was ever real, or if it was always conditional. This internal conflict drains you, because cutting off strangers is easy. But distancing yourself from family feels like tearing away a piece of your own history. The pain becomes layered: grief for what was lost, anger for what was done, and mourning for the parents you thought you had. There is also shame attached to family betrayal. People assume parents always mean well, so when you speak about what happened, you're often met with doubt or minimization. They're still your parents, they say. They must have had a reason. This reaction isolates you further, forcing you to carry the betrayal silently. You begin to question your own judgment, wondering if you are overreacting, even when the facts are clear. That isolation can be just as damaging as the act itself. Yet within this pain, something irreversible happens. Once family betrays you, innocence is gone forever. You no longer operate on blind trust. You begin to see power dynamics instead of roles, actions instead of titles. This awareness is painful, but it is also clarifying. You learn that love without respect is dangerous, and blood alone does not guarantee loyalty. That understanding reshapes how you protect yourself moving forward. Betrayal from family forces you to grow faster than you wanted to. It hardens you in places that once felt safe, but it also strengthens your boundaries. You stop assuming and start verifying. You stop relying on promises and start relying on preparation. The wound never fully disappears, but it becomes a reminder, one that teaches you that trust is sacred and should never be given simply because of a shared name or history. Silence and vulnerability are often mistaken for weakness because the world has learned to worship noise. We live in a time where the loudest voice in the room is assumed to be the strongest, where confidence is measured by how quickly someone reacts and how aggressively they defend themselves. In that environment, anyone who pauses, listens, or chooses not to respond immediately is labeled passive, afraid, or incapable. People forget that silence can be a decision, not an absence, and vulnerability can be a phase, not a permanent state. When someone is vulnerable, lying in a hospital bed recovering from surgery, or simply going through a difficult chapter, others often project their own assumptions onto that moment. They see stillness and interpret it as surrender. They see dependence and mistake it for incompetence. This misinterpretation gives them a false sense of superiority. They believe that because you cannot act right now, you will never act at all. And that belief emboldens them to make choices over you, for you, and against you. Silence creates discomfort for people who rely on control. When you don't argue, explain, or expose your plans, they fill the gaps with their own narratives. They tell themselves you don't know what's happening, that you're unaware, that you'll accept whatever outcome they decide. In reality, silence often means observation. It means someone is watching, processing, and storing information. But because this work happens internally, it remains invisible, and invisibility is easily underestimated. Vulnerability amplifies this effect. When your strength is temporarily reduced, people assume your authority is gone forever. Illness, surgery, emotional exhaustion. These moments make others feel bold. They step into roles they were never given, claiming responsibility while quietly seizing power. They justify their actions by pointing to your condition, saying they had no choice because you were unable. What they don't understand is that vulnerability does not erase ownership, intelligence, or foresight. It only delays expression. The dangerous part of being underestimated is not the loss itself, but the arrogance it creates in others. When people think you are weak, they become careless. They speak too freely. They leave evidence behind. They make decisions without covering their tracks because they don't believe you will ever question them. This is where silence becomes powerful. While they relax, you learn. While they assume victory, you regain strength. The imbalance they think favors them quietly shifts back to you. Silence also protects clarity. In moments of betrayal or shock, reacting emotionally often benefits the person who caused the harm. They expect anger, tears, or confrontation because those responses confirm their sense of control. Silence denies them that satisfaction. It forces them to sit with uncertainty, to wonder what you know and what you might do next. That uncertainty is unsettling, especially for people who acted believing they were untouchable. There is also dignity in silence during vulnerability. Choosing not to beg, not to explain your pain, and not to reveal your next move preserves your inner authority. It allows you to heal without performing your suffering for others. While the world assumes you are broken, you are rebuilding. While they think you are unaware, you are planning. Silence becomes a shield, guarding what remains until you are ready to stand fully agai. In the end, those who mistake silence for weakness reveal more about themselves than about you. They show that their power depends on reaction, not substance. They need noise to feel in control. True strength, however, doesn't rush to announce itself. It waits, recovers, and returns at the moment when it can no longer be ignored. Truth has a way of surfacing at the most unexpected time because it cannot remain buried forever. No matter how carefully people plan, hide, or manipulate events, reality carries a quiet persistence. It waits beneath the surface, patient and unhurried, until circumstances align and exposure becomes inevitable. People who rely on secrecy often believe control means concealment, but concealment is fragile. It depends on silence, on others staying weak, distracted, or unaware. The moment any of those conditions change, the truth begins to rise. What makes the arrival of truth so powerful is its timing. It rarely appears when people feel prepared for it. It surfaces when confidence is highest, when those who acted wrongly feel safe in their assumptions. That is why its impact is so devastating. When people believe they have already won, when they think the consequences are behind them, truth enters and dismantles the narrative they built. It doesn't need force or drama. Its presence alone is enough to shift the balance. Truth often reveals itself through small details, rather than dramatic confrontations. A document, a signature, a forgotten conversation, a property record, a financial trail. Things people assume will never be checked become the very things that expose them. Those who acted in secrecy underestimate memory and overestimate their ability. Thank you to control information. They forget that systems, records, and time itself are impartial. They do not protect intentions, only facts. There is also a psychological weight to truth that cannot be denied once revealed. Lies require maintenance. They demand constant awareness, consistent storytelling, and collective cooperation. Truth requires none of that. Once it is known, it stands on its own. People may try to explain it away, justify it, or soften it, but its core remains unchanged. That is why the moment of discovery feels so heavy. It collapses excuses and strips away the comfort of denial. For the person who uncovers the truth, the experience is both painful and liberating. Painful because it confirms suspicions you hoped were wrong. Liberating because uncertainty ends. Doubt is replaced with clarity. You no longer have to imagine possibilities or question your instincts. You see the situation for what it is, not what you wished it could be. That clarity, though harsh, becomes a foundation for reclaiming control. Unexpected truth also exposes character. When confronted, people reveal who they are not through what they did, but through how they respond. Some deny, some deflect, some minimize. Rarely do they take full responsibility. In those moments, you learn more than you ever intended to. The truth doesn't just reveal actions. It reveals values, priorities, and limits of loyalty. What makes truth unstoppable is that it does not need your permission to exist. You can ignore it, delay it, or suppress it temporarily, but it remains intact beneath the surface. When it finally emerges, it does not ask to be believed, it demands to be acknowledged. And once acknowledged, nothing returns to the way it was before. Real power comes from preparation, not confrontation, because preparation builds outcomes while confrontation only creates noise. Confrontation is visible and emotional. It gives the illusion of strength through raised voices, accusations, and dramatic moments. Preparation, on the other hand, is quiet and often invisible. It happens long before conflict appears and continues, even when others believe nothing is happening. Those who rely on confrontation seek immediate satisfaction, while those who prepare are focused on long-term control. Preparation requires discipline. It means thinking ahead when everything seems calm and making decisions when there is no pressure forcing you to act. This kind of foresight is rarely appreciated because it lacks spectacle. No one applauds the choices you make in silence, the safeguards you put in place, or the risks you reduce before they become visible threats. Yet when crisis arrives, preparation reveals its true value. It turns chaos into manageability and prevents desperation from dictating your actions. Confrontation often benefits the person who is least prepared. Emotional reactions expose intentions, reveal weaknesses, and hand power to those who thrive on conflict. When you confront too early, you educate the other side. You show them what you know, what you feel, and what you might do next. Preparation avoids this trap. It allows you to act without explaining yourself, to move with certainty instead of impulse. Those who prepare understand that control is about options. The more options you have, the less dependent you are on anyone else's decisions. Financial security, legal awareness, documentation, and contingency plans are forms of quiet power. They don't announce themselves, but they change everything. When someone believes they have cornered you, preparation is what reveals that you were never trapped at all. Preparation also protects dignity. It keeps you from begging, bargaining, or justifying yourself in moments of pressure. When you know you are secure, you don't need to convince others of your worth or defend every choice. Your actions speak on your behalf. This is why prepared individuals often appear calm during crises. Their calm is not ignorance. It is confidence rooted in readiness. There is a patience that comes with preparation. You learn to wait instead of reacting, to observe instead of engaging. This patience unsettles those who rely on confrontation because they expect resistance. When resistance doesn't come, they assume victory. They relax, make mistakes, and expose themselves. Preparation turns their impatience into your advantage. True power is rarely recognized in the moment. It is noticed only when outcomes unfold, when plans hold under pressure, when stability remains despite attempts to disrupt it, and when others realize too late that their leverage was imagined. Preparation ensures that even if something is taken from you, not everything is lost. It creates layers of security that cannot be destroyed by a single action or betrayal. In the end, preparation is not about paranoia or distrust. It is about respect for reality. It acknowledges that people can change, circumstances can shift, and trust can be broken. By preparing quietly, you protect your future without needing to dominate the present.